Welcome back, everyone, to episode 12, season 2, episode 2 of the They Fly Now Show podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about the man who everyone loves. I mean, if you like Star Wars and don't like Luke Skywalker, I don't know what you're doing. So, welcome back. Me and Hereth welcome you guys, and we have an amazing panel of guests tonight that are going to be joining us, and yeah, it's going to be an awesome show.
They fly now! They fly now!
I make him for us.
Yeah, and we're on soon.
All right, what's up? As you guys can see, we are joined by these three amazing guests who all have a awesome passion for Luke Skywalker. So let's just go around to start everything off and just kind of tell us a little about yourself. Where can we find you? Who are you? And how did Luke Skywalker impact your guys' life? And let's go to Peyton, who is his first time on They Fly Now. Peyton, thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Peyton. I make movie and Marvel and Star Wars content over on TikTok at Peyton. Personally, with me, Luke Skywalker, I've always loved him. I was never completely attached to him until The Last Jedi came out. That was the one that really made me appreciate his character a lot more. Right now, he's my second favorite character, second to Yoda. Yoda is my favorite Star Wars character. And I don't know, The Last Jedi just connected with me in terms of Luke, just because I'm the kind of person where when I feel like I've let somebody else down, I kind of, beat myself up over it. So to see a character like Luke going through something like he does in The Last Jedi, it was really, I think, a beautiful story. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but I'm sure we'll get into it.
No, yeah, for sure. Definitely go check out his content. He makes awesome content. And X-Core, if you want to go next.
I am X-Core Gamer Skills on TikTok. I'm also X-Core Gamer Skills everywhere else. I've recently gotten started back into streaming on Twitch as well. Mostly I do Star Wars content. Anything else, sometimes I talk about current events or current Marvel films. And you will be seeing nothing but Wheel of Time content from me very soon. That show comes out in about a month and a half.
Also, you can find X-Core at the Conspiracy Cantina podcast.
Yes, my DePaul's gonna skip. Yeah, I am every bi-weekly a co-host of Conspiracy Cantina. There are some changes coming to that. I got offered a new job. I will be starting that soon, so my schedule is going to be changing. I don't have anything set in stone, so it's going to be kind of hard to do. Episodes. I think the next one is actually going to be on Sunday, October 16th. But again, I don't have anything set in stone or confirmed yet. So we might be on a hiatus for a week or two.
Well, it is every 2 weeks. So
yeah, well, it would normally we do it on the 12th, but like I said, I might be having to work that day and the next day. So it's going to be one of those play it by ear things.
Yeah, but he has an awesome podcast. I know me and Hereth tune in every week, so if you guys have not already, definitely go check that out. And Kev, welcome back to They Fly Now.
Hello, thanks for having me again.
So same questions to you.
So I'm on most platforms. I'm Kevin Parker. Jay's my first initial. You can call me Kev, Kevin, Kev. Any of that stuff is fine. And it made it easier for me to grab a handle that I could use everywhere, because Kevin Parker is a pretty common name. But I'm not a common guy, I guess. I don't know. I have a YouTube as well. It's called Epic Worldview. It's in my link tree. It's the easiest way to find it. I am starting to ramp up more content. I've been working for kind of months on the side of my content creation to figure out what am I going to actually post there that's worth, going and watching. So there's that. And pretty soon there's going to be another new podcast with a dude named Kev and myself. And that is going to be, it's formulating now, so details will be coming out at some point. But so be looking for that. As far as Luke Skywalker, so I was a baby when the first movie came out. And so growing up, I always had Luke Skywalker playing in the background, kind of thing. Like I always kind of was having his story. He's probably one of the, besides like Superman with the movies, Christopher Reeve movies, like those were two of the characters that I spent the most time with as a kid and enjoyed the most. And for Luke, like I grew up on a farm, and so did Luke, even though we didn't farm moisture. Feel weird, but you know, it's cool. It's space, right? But to see a farm boy from the middle of nowhere go on to become a hero and actually make a difference in the world, in the universe, in the galaxy, like that was an inspiration for me as a farm boy from the middle of literally nowhere. And I got out of there as fast as I could so that I could become a hero. And then to see him in The Last Jedi, growing up with Luke and now being, you know, right beginning, you know, middle age for me, in my mid 40s, I'm seeing a lot of my own life in his experience in The Last Jedi. So I just related so much to just sort of the sense of failure, but also still sense of responsibility. So yeah, I'm excited to jump into all those in detail with all of you. But yeah, Luke's been pretty impactful to me.
Yeah,
I forgot to give my initial thoughts. Too many parts.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna go back to okay, yeah.
So Luke is my favorite Star Wars character. He's my favorite character in all of media, hands down. Luke's journey for me, I identify with Luke's journey because not that I grew up in rural America. I grew up in the middle of a city, but Luke's the kid who like nobody gets. Like his parents don't understand why he wants to be a pilot. They don't understand why he doesn't want to just stay home and you know, help out. And that's kind of been my journey through life. Like nobody understands that like I'm the nerdy kid who likes video games and Star Wars. And I, you know, he's got all these influences telling him what he should do. And Luke's journey is about finding what he wants to do and how to make his life his own. And I solidly identify with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, and that's like because X-Core, were you a kid whenever New Hope came out?
I was born in '84, so
okay,
I missed.
That's perfect.
I missed Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi was what, 86?
83.
83. So yeah, I missed that. But Star Wars was always around. Like my brother had a bunch of the old figures. He had Luke's land speeder. He had a Boba Fett figure. Star Wars was part of the popular culture when I was a kid. But like I remember like my first time ever seeing Star Wars was on a 13-inch CRT TV over the air.
That's amazing.
Like rabbit ears. No joke. We didn't have cable for a little while as a kid. So like when I say I grew up on Star Wars, like I watched it whenever I could. The first time I saw A New Hope, I was like, okay, now I need to see all of this.
Yeah. So that's like perfect because we have 3 guests here tonight. J-Kev, who grew up with Luke Skywalker, grew up with the original trilogy releasing. X-Core a little bit older, and then Peyton a lot younger, just like me and Hereth. How old are you, Peyton? I'm not
19.
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay, so you're our age. So we have like these different age groups and different perspectives on Luke. And like again, who doesn't like Luke? If you like Star Wars and don't like Luke, I don't know how. And then real quick, before we start getting into the podcast, what does Luke symbolize to you guys? I'll let J-Kev go first. I know it's kind of a broad question.
Yeah, no, he to me symbolizes somebody who has a lot of flaws and many of them self-inflicted, like just being a whiny little punk for a while, and then overcoming those flaws, but you know, experiencing new ones and then having to overcome those even toward the end of his life, right? So it symbolizes to me hope. I know hope is Leia's thing, right? Like that's been one of her defining traits, but also, you know, just the name Skywalker by the end, that was what gave hope to the entire galaxy. And so that's what I would say symbolizes hope. There's hope for me. There's hope for Luke.
Yeah. Peyton?
So yeah, jumping off what Jacob just said about hope, that's literally what I was gonna say is like the title, A New Hope. That's him. He's always been that new hope. I mean, even in The Last Jedi, up until the very end of his life, just ignites that spark once again. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but I just love that about him. And it almost feels kind of consistent with the Skywalker family as a whole. You have Anakin, obviously goes down a very dark path, but he just does that one act at the end to kind of fix things. I mean, obviously it's not full redemption for everything he's done, but you know what I mean. And then Ben Solo too. Ben Solo at the very end decides he's gonna help Rey. And so the Skywalkers are kind of a fix it at the last minute type of group of individuals. So but to me, he's always symbolized hope and inspiration, and I think that's my favorite part about him, probably.
No, yeah, definitely. And X-Core?
Luke is hope and determination. Like, the thing I love about Luke is he's like, even in the original trilogy, he's not the strongest, he's not the best looking, he's not the most skilled, but he is always going to do what he feels is the right thing. Luke is Chaco did a video about what characters would wear what lantern rings, and Luke's the Green Lantern. he does things that he shouldn't be able to do through sheer force of will and determination, because that's Luke's story. He's hope and he's determination.
Yeah, a lot like you said, Luke is not like he's, from where he started, he didn't have the kind of the leap forward, or he, like Leia is born into being a princess. Luke is on a farm and doesn't have anything and has to work up from that. And then just real quick to shout some people on the chat. We got Charlie Johnson. Go check out Char J on TikTok. Pods One Podcast, who actually Char J and Luke at Pods One Podcast have a podcast, Pods One Podcast, which is live every Friday. You guys should totally go check them out. And Aiden talks Star Wars topics. Thank you guys for joining. So yeah, we're gonna kind of be breaking tonight down, just Luke by film, like from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back to all the way to The Last Jedi. And so that's kind of how we're gonna organize it. And Hereth, if you want to take it away with A New Hope.
Yeah. So obviously, when you're breaking up these movies into like sections and trying to like analyze it, it's kind of hard because these movies are really iconic. So we're gonna start off with A New Hope because obviously that's where his journey starts. And obviously, like, our introduction to Luke is really in this narrow kind of like droid view. So obviously we get exposed to Luke at the Harmstead, and of course I gotta ask, what are your opinions on how Luke acts in A New Hope, and how does it set the precedent going forward for the entire trilogy and saga?
Also, we're going to try to make this as conversation as possible.
Yeah. So
then we'll call on people. Feel free to chime in and just make it like a big conversation. Then we'll ask questions when we need to.
Yeah, A New Hope Luke is, he gets a lot of flack for being whiny, but you gotta understand, like, he's bored out of his freaking mind. like he doesn't get to do anything he wants to do. His uncle's constantly giving him shit to do that, like, is boring him to tears. And then when he gets a free minute, Owen's like, "Nah, you can't go do that." And then, but like I talked about this before, like Luke's thing is always trying to do the right thing, and he's always trying to do the right thing, especially by his family. Like, he wants to leave and go join the academy, and they can't physically stop him. But does he go? No, he stays there. And then when Obi-Wan's like, "Well, hey, I need you to come with me," he's like, "No, I have obligations, and until they're gone, he can't." But this really sets up like everything we know about Luke throughout the entire time we see him. He's always doing what he thinks is the right thing. This topic talks about the Battle of Yavin, and like, he made that shot because he believed in himself. It wasn't because he was necessarily the best pilot, and he's a good pilot, but Luke's story is about believing in yourself and doing the right thing, and that's, I'm probably going to keep touching on that because That's that's every time you see Luke, it's that. And the one time anytime he does the thing that's not, the right thing in the context, he's doing what he thinks is right.
Yeah. Like, you're definitely right. Like, he's bored out of his mind. Like, he shoots womp rats for fun. Like, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me whenever you have this entire galaxy where you can be flying around Star Destroyers and blowing up planets.
Yeah. And I mean, perhaps one of the most iconic scenes in Star Wars is the binary sunset. He's looking out on a desert where nothing can grow. He can't grow. He's not growing. He doesn't feel like he's growing. And I love that scene. I mean, obviously the music is beautiful and it's become an icon over the years. And I love how The Last Jedi kind of mirrors it. But yeah, Luke, I mean, he's definitely whiny in the first movie. And he's going to the Tashi station to pick up some power converters. That's my favorite line. But I think it's a really good starting point for his character arc. And I'm glad that, like X-Core was saying, we get a pretty narrow view of him, because I think if you watch it in numerical order, you know what's special about Luke. But I think there's something kind of magical about watching A New Hope when you don't know what's special about Luke yet, because I think it makes him more relatable.
Yeah, I always recommend to anybody to watch the films in release order.
Yes.
Like
100%.
any of the Star Wars media, like, I don't recommend watching the Clone Wars before you watch Revenge of the Sith. Like, you there's something about knowing too much your first time watching these movies.
Yeah. And that's the same with a lot of, like, just anything in general. Like, you just don't want it spoiled. And obviously, I mean, almost everyone knows that Luke is Vader's father, but getting stuff spoiled just really, really stinks. And I don't know, if you don't know that and you watch 4, 5, 6 first, that twist is like insane.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I
Every
remember.
time
I remember
leave
seeing it as a
a
kid.
Star Wars movie. This has been since Phantom Menace came out. I always yell, "Darth Vader's Luke's father," as a fake spoiler, because I'm hoping everybody has seen that, right? Because that had been like decades before. So just I hate spoilers, but that one, at least up until recently, when people have been born since even the prequels were made, who like Star Wars, which is very cool, my kids included. Everybody knew it. Even if you hadn't seen Star Wars, you knew that Luke was the son of Darth Vader back in the day.
Yeah.
Not so much now.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that for the first time, and I was like, I remember, like, he's lying, right? I asked my parents, I'm like, there's no way he's telling the truth. And then they were like, they put on Return of the Jedi, and I was like, oh, he was telling the truth. Okay.
Well, didn't they specifically put in that scene with Yoda, not to get too far into it, but they put that scene with Yoda because kids didn't believe that Vader was telling the truth, so like, we're gonna like just tell the audience, yes, he is in fact.
That entire thing on Dagobah between Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda and all that, I believe, was specifically because there was a decent amount of it wasn't just the kids, there were adults that didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a child psychologist actually that Lucas had consulted with said, you really have to do something to verify this, because nobody's going to believe it. And so he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jacob, same. Oh, sorry, Hereth.
Oh no, you're good.
I was gonna say, Jacob, same question to you. What are your opinions on Luke in A New Hope?
I mean, he is whiny, but like we were saying, he's so bored and he just wants to get out of there. And again, growing up on a farm with ADHD, not even knowing what that was at the time, like, I was bored a lot and just wanted to get out of there and do something. And so I'm sure I sounded a lot like Luke. And the fact that he grew a lot in that film, and suddenly he had the rug pulled out from underneath him a couple of times, right? Like with his aunt and uncle. Well, almost literally with the sand people that attacked him, and then later on his aunt and uncle, like minutes later, and then when Ben was cut down, and for old Ben, in his sight. And he just didn't know what to do. So he has all these crises he has to keep overcoming. But that's part of growing up. Like, life is like that. So having having to deal with that stuff that he's never had to deal with before. It was part of his character growth. So, yeah, I thought it was good. I was really glad to see him a bit more mature in the following movies, but he still kind of has that cycle. People like, oh, well, he learned this lesson. He shouldn't have to relearn it. He had to keep learning not to be whiny and impetuous like his whole life. So, like, that also gives me a little bit of hope because, there's sometimes I fall into those old habits again.
And that's like extremely relatable because like you can't just expect someone to learn a lesson the first time. Yeah, like sometimes that will happen, but I mean it's gonna take a while for someone to learn a lesson that's really big, like the lessons that Luke were learning.
Yeah. And again, I feel like people, again, we'll touch on this with The Last Jedi, but I feel like people really harp on like characters over like these like iconic characters not growing. Like they just like them to stay very like stationary and just kind of stay static, which is kind of weird if you really think about it, because like once you want your characters to grow and change as they evolve over the years instead of just staying the same like characters that they were like 30 years ago.
Well, the same people that complain about Luke not growing and changing at all gripe and say that Rey didn't change at all.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't think we're watching the same movies, at least not with the same level of consciousness.
People look at the OT with rose colored glasses all the time. I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna call, like, I made a whole video series. Like anytime someone would say it, I'm like, no, let's call this out. Let's look at Luke's character development. Let's look at Rey's. A lot of Luke's character development isn't internalized on screen. Like a big thing happens, he deals with it off screen. Like Ben dies, he's sad, and then he gets that message from Ben. Like that's probably the best thing that there's. Like the end of Empire, everyone talks about like, oh, he lost his hand, and this one, like, yeah, and then nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see. You
Minutes
don't
later,
see,
he has a prosthesis that's as
like
good
he has
or better.
a prosthesis, and he's hanging out with Leia. You don't see him process anything on screen.
I mean,
Yes.
these are goofy movies, guys.
Well,
People
I
are
love
taking
the
it
story
too
about
seriously.
how they had been in that garbage dump with all, and he was underwater.
Oh,
and
with
in the very
Harrison
next
Ford?
scene,
Yeah.
his hair is dry and done, and like you've probably all seen that same interview with Mark Hamill talking about his conversation with Harrison Ford about, isn't that going to be weird? He's like, kid, it ain't that kind of movie. I just thought, what a great line. We should all remember that. It's not that kind of movie.
If anyone notices your hair, we're in big trouble.
Exactly. I did, but probably not for about 15 years.
And-
it took me a while. And I grew up having, literally my brain developing as these movies were coming out. It was all kind of jumbled, the whole trilogy for me, because it was finished by the time I was 6 or 7. And then over the next decade is when I finally started thinking through, oh, okay, there's some story. I need to get the sequencing right. I need to make sure I understand the details. I need to see where I think it falls apart. But that was just me, growing up and getting toward college age and learning to think more critically. We tend to, as you say, X-Corp, with the rose-colored glasses, like we think everything from our childhood that we fell in love with is perfect, but everything else falls short after that. And that's the pattern with the fandom, and why we have a lot of these conversations about how people hate the new stuff. But yeah, they don't really critically think about the stuff they fell in love with, which was literally when they were children. Clone Wars is another good example. They fell in love with the Clone Wars because they were kids, and then Rebels comes out and they're not quite so young anymore, and they see, oh, well, this is a kid's show. Well, so was Clone Wars. So was all the film. Most of it is made for kids level, and then we can still enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'll never not be a kid, so there we go.
Yeah, I'm excited for the franchise to give us some adult stuff. Like they have a little bit, but I still really enjoy the kid stuff. Like it's Star Wars, and I think
fun.
one of the things that I absolutely love about Dave Filoni is his method of storytelling. He's able to really pack some heavy stuff in there for stuff that's aimed at kids, and he does it in a way that doesn't feel pandering at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I think that kind of comes back to what Star Wars is at its core of people always try to forget what it is at the end of the day. Because Lucas always says Star Wars is a film for 12-year-olds. And I know a lot of people get mad at that, but that's what it is. It's literally what it is.
Yep, you're supposed to enjoy your popcorn and have a rip-roaring good time. Those are Lucas's
Yeah,
own words
I
about
mean-
his own deep, movies.
I mean, like Harrison Ford said, it ain't that kind of movie, and I feel like this might be a hot take, but The Last Jedi is more of that kind of movie than the originals are, and I think people don't like it for that reason sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't like it was a very unexpected turn of things, but there's a lot of people that are like, well, this isn't Star Wars. I'm like, well, it is. Well, Ryan Johnson doesn't know. Yes, he does. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, there's
You have to think about this movie to understand it. And
Right. It's not spoon-fed to you.
Right.
there's something Ryan Johnson said about, I think for Christmas or something, I might be misremembering, but he got a camera when he was younger and he took it and he recorded a video of him like sweeping it in between the couch and the ottoman, and he was like, oh, it's just like the trench run from Star Wars. Like, that man is a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the trench run,
Yeah.
um,
That's a great segue into the next question.
Hereth, you can ask.
Yeah. So obviously, again, we talk about like a lot about like Luke's growth overall, and I feel like the most thing that establishes that is the Battle of Yavin. So obviously, I have to ask, what are your thoughts on the Battle of Yavin, and how does it foreshadow for what he's going to become later on? Even though it's kind of very
Real
similar to
quick.
the first one.
Real quick, so let you guys process that. Shout out to Amber Medina in the chat, Brooke B_Dazzler, which she has an Etsy shop, Far Far Away Factory. You guys should totally go check it out. She's making like everything, and you can get custom stuff. I know I was gonna get a custom pair of Vans, but Brooke's been on here multiple times. So go check out Brooke at Far Far Away Factory. Xantos1138, who makes some awesome content. And Ace Bronx. Thank you guys all for joining. Sorry, had to shut them out real quick.
Oh no, we got to get that ad in.
Yes. Oh wait, do we have the ad up?
Yeah, I had it up for a good second. But yeah.
Yes. Yes. So go check it out. Far Far Away Factory on Etsy.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the trench run again. This is open discussion like last time. If you guys have thoughts, go right ahead.
I'll be honest, the last time I watched A New Hope, which was a couple months ago, I thought that the trench run, like, there's a lot of shots that repeat and it kind of drags on, I'm not gonna lie, and that some of the editing is a little weird, but it's still so fun to watch. I mean, it's Star Wars, I have that feeling about it. But
yeah,
I definitely, like X-Core was saying earlier, it's definitely a big character moment for Luke. I mean, and it also shows you don't need a lot of training to use the Force, which I think is important to note throughout the entire saga.
How dare you?
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very uplifting moment. I do think it's a little goofy seeing Darth Vader's head spinning around in the cockpit. And when
I thought it was more
Solo
goofy
shows up.
the fact that Luke is in there, and you know the shape of an X-wing. I mean, here we got Red 5 right behind me, and he's like this, like that's how you're gonna rock in an X-wing. Like, the physics don't add up, but there's also pew pew in space, so I get it. It's
Yes.
not about physics.
yeah.
And they fly like planes.
Physics, pew pew in space.
Right? Yeah, it's way more important. So, although when I was in college, my friends and I used to sit and theorize things like, well, perhaps the Death Star is so large, it has enough mass that it has a small atmosphere, and so sound could travel through the air. Yeah. Anyway, we were overthinking it, but it was fun.
It could have.
just like everyone overthinks the exhaust port. It's like, well, I mean, that reactor's gonna need an exhaust port, and 2 meters is not very big.
Not for something that size, definitely.
So it's I don't know. I love the Death Star trench run. It's one of those things like, anytime you get to experience the Death Star trench run is a good day for me. I liked it's one of the things I liked about Rogue Squadron and the extra missions. You could do the trench run. I used to play the Star Wars CCG, and one of my tactics was always to do the Death Star trench run because you could basically win the game at that point. Like I went out of my way to collect the Death Star trench run. I had a pretty good dark side deck. That was my bread and butter. But I went out of my way to collect a light side Death Star and all the pilots, so I could do the trench run.
A light side Death Star.
Yeah,
One of the
so
things about
so-
the sorry, go ahead.
you could make a deck out of light side or dark side cards.
Oh, it's amazing.
And the Death Star, when it like in the initial release, was only a dark side card, but you got so many. I can't remember exactly how the rules worked out, but you got like so many points essentially for blowing up the Death Star that you would essentially win the game. So they had to release a light side version of it because there were so many light side decks based around Death Star trench runs.
One of the things I think is so cool about the trench run is just looking at how it's made. And I've watched, multiple documentaries about, how they did that, how they created all this tech. I mean, every single Star Wars movie, they've invented new tech in the TV shows now as well to be able to create these iconic scenes. And the way they built the, camera tracks and things like that to be able to automate these things and take these models, these incredibly detailed models, and put it way before there was ever any CGI, right? Like the fact that the special effects, for the most part, still hold up really well. I know we've digitized them more. He added some effects, most of which I thought were pretty good additions, unlike many people my age. But just what they did accomplish in the 70s was amazing to me. I love all of that.
Yeah, the only thing, like I watched this right before they released the digital re-editions, like right before they were releasing those in theaters. They ran like a marathon, again over the air. I actually had cable at this point, but like one of the things you actually can see if you have the old films is the little black boxes around all the planes or all the ships.
Oh yeah, I've noticed that.
Like it's very very subtle. Like you have to really be paying attention to find it, but like. Even still, it's like they did a lot for 74. It was being produced in like
77.
That's insane.
And apparently what happened was Lucas made ILM because, again, remember all the visual effects studios at the time were like shut down. So he made ILM on his own dime, and they only had like 3 shots done within a year. So in 6 months, they had to crank out the entirety of A New Hope visual effects.
The funny thing about that is so he took less pay, and then he moved the production to a lot of the production to Britain, and he used the pay that the studio gave him to make the movie to create ILM.
Yep.
Huh.
Like that's how ILM got started, because there were no production facilities that could even do it anyway. Like they invented a lot. Like I love watching the documentary on how they filmed the opening crawl, because like that technology didn't exist. Like they took the words for the crawl, put it on a huge glass.
They literally cut out the letters.
Wow.
Yeah, they put on a huge glass
That's insane.
strip, and then they took a camera on a track at an angle, and they ran it or up down the track so that like, because they didn't have digital art at all. Like there was no other way to really do that. Like the only other way they could have done it was put it on like an old school teleprompter and rolled it. But and I think they tried it and it didn't look as good.
Yeah, it would have looked very like, driving school film, driver's ed film quality.
And then from there you have the Star Destroyer chase like right after that, right? Do you know how they did that?
Well, even the opening scene is the Star Destroyer chasing the Tantive 4.
Yeah.
So like even that for itself is so advanced for its time.
Yeah, I mean that
It's
model
like
was huge and
seamless.
very detailed, and the way they were able to scale it and make it look so big on screen by not showing you the whole thing for so long. That was part of it. It's like, is this thing ever going to end? Which is why Spaceballs lampoons it with that whole long goes on forever. But yeah, it was really, really incredible.
And little fun fact, not to get too sidetracked off, but the opening crawl, because this is supposed to be about Luke, but one more behind the scenes fact of A New Hope, that the crawler in A New Hope almost caused a real life war between Tanzania, however you say it, and
Tunisia?
Tunisia and Egypt,
Tanzania?
I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
sandcrawler.
because they thought it was an imperial, like
It's some kind of big tank, right?
Yeah, so they were like, if you don't take this down, we will respond with military action. And then George is like, oh, it's just
a prop.
Prop,
Guys, please don't kill my film crew.
Move this way.
Yeah.
All right. Back to Luke. So, at the end of A New Hope, Luke destroys the Death Star. Everything is going amazing. Darth Vader is somewhere in space. We don't even know if he survived. But then, as we later know, Ciena Ree goes and picks him up. If you've read Lost Stars. And oh, dang it! Should go read it.
Yeah,
but
I'm reading a lot of different things. I'm getting Ronin again. I just read a bunch of the comics.
Oh really?
Yeah, I read 3 of the Darth Vader runs. I've read a lot of the New High Republic stuff. So
solid.
It's awesome.
My reading list is.
Yeah.
I started reading this year, so I've read 11 novels, I think, this year.
That's the wonderful thing. We're reading, but we're enjoying reading. Reading's good for you. But all right, back to Luke. So we see Luke at the end of A New Hope. Everything's going amazing. We think Darth Vader's destroyed, and then comes Empire Strikes Back, and it seems like everything they just did got completely reversed. Now they've been living on this ice planet for years, and Luke, I would say, has changed a lot from the end of A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back, but then through Empire Strikes Back takes a huge character development leap. So what's your opinion on the main qualities of Luke in Empire Strikes Back? And we'll go on the first half of Empire because I think there's like kind of split them up. So right now, let's talk the first half of Empire Strikes Back up to Dagobah, and then after we'll talk about the second half of Empire Strikes Back.
Well, at that point, Luke hasn't quite. Well, he's gotten like 5 minutes of training, right? Jedi training. That's it. And he yet is still like exploring his powers. He's starting to test them and learn. He's able to, do a little telekinesis and things like that. And he's getting confident, which is important. You need confidence, but we see there's some overconfidence at some point, right? Like maybe he's not as skilled as he needs to be. So as soon as he's told, hey, you need to go to Dagobah and train, he actually does it, which, at least he listened to one of his mentors once in that movie. Later on, he doesn't. But then of course, when we get to I got something I can't forget when we get to the second half. But yeah, he's at that point where all of us who actually grow up at some point had that period where, okay, I'm pretty sure of myself. I can, rule the world. I'm big man on campus or big woman or whatever. We know what we're so confident in our own abilities, but we're not quite there yet. Like, he still had a lot more to learn. So I think that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and I mean, sure, part of the reason he listened to Obi-Wan is he was just taken down a peg, getting trapped in that cave, which, I mean, that's the first time he uses the Force to move an object when he pulls the lightsaber to him. And we see Obi-Wan in A New Hope do something to distract a few stormtroopers. I don't think you actually see the noise that he makes or if he knocks something down or what it was, but that's really the first time we're like clearly shown the Force being used to move an object or to pull an object to you. And it's interesting because Luke he wasn't even around when Obi-Wan did that, so how does he know how to do that? It's just instinct, that's what the first
Luke's
thing
and Mary Sue.
Act on instinct.
I mean, it is a self-insert character, right? Luke is death.
Yeah, Luke's journey through that film is I think amazing, and I think the real turning point of that whole movie is the cave, and he doesn't understand that lesson. I don't think he ever really understands that lesson his whole life. We'll get more into that when we talk about Return of the Jedi, but like he doesn't understand. I don't think he even understood what he saw in there. And so when you see him in the Wampa Cave, you see him start to explore, and you see him go to Dagobah, and he's still carrying like all this stuff that he thinks, because he's only ever heard stories about the Jedi. Even from Obi-Wan, he doesn't have like any real training on what the Force is or what the Jedi are or what he's supposed to do. And we don't know anything about what they were doing in between, and it doesn't look like he was training. He doesn't barely know how to hold a lightsaber. So you know,
Yeah.
You have all these little steps, and he's constantly turning away from that side of his personality because his friends need help. It's the same. That's the thing about Luke's character. Like, he's always turning away from the thing he wants to do because his friends need help.
Yeah. And especially in Empire.
Yeah.
I've got to save them. He has a bigger complex, but that's also pretty typical.
Yeah. And then, what are your guys' thoughts? Let's just talk the cave scene, everything Dagobah going forward until. Let's break it up into 3. Everything until the fight with Vader. What's your guys' thoughts on that, and kind of just breaking down what happens with Luke's character?
I love that whole Dagobah segment. I think it's probably the reason that Empire is my second favorite Star Wars movie. It's just that makes the whole movie for me. Yoda is obviously my favorite character, as I said earlier, but I love Luke's training because it's mostly just mental. I mean, we see him running around and he climbs a vine, but it's mostly just you need to unlearn what you have learned, think a different way, gain a new perspective. And I think that that's really the most important thing when it comes to Force training. I mean, Yoda literally spells out how Force training works in that film, but there are still people that say it works differently. And
Yeah.
I think we just need to listen to Yoda. Just watch Empire.
That's become one of my go-to responses. Like, have you learned nothing from Yoda? Whether it's people talking about hating on others, like that's a good thing. I'm like, did you not watch The Phantom Menace? Hate leads to suffering. And there's so many lessons Yoda gives us throughout the entire saga, which is amazing. But no, they don't learn those.
No. It's Pep says this all the time. It's the people saying that other people are clueless that know the least. Like, nobody I've ever heard who critiques most of what goes on and with the Force and any of these movies understands how it's not a superpower, it's an ally. The Jedi in the prequels do not train to master Force abilities. The Jedi in the High Republic do not train to master Force abilities. You train your mind and your body to deepen your connection to the Force. That's all it is. And so I love the whole Dagobah sequence. Like, he meets Yoda and he's looking for a Jedi Master. The only Jedi Masters he's ever heard about were his dad, who was never a Master, and Obi-Wan. He thinks that's what a Jedi is. And, like, as much as people say that Obi-Wan's the perfect Jedi, he never really was. That's part of what I love about Obi-Wan. So he's looking for a great Jedi Master, a great warrior, and Yoda's like, "We're not make one great." He's looking for something, and instead of using the Force, he's using his head, and that's Yoda has to beat it into him relentlessly. Stop using this. Start using this. You have the Force. The Force is your ally. Listen to it, and he doesn't. It's the same thing in the cave. You know, he goes to the cave because he feels the dark side pulling at him, and he's about to walk in, and Yoda says, "Your weapons, you will not need them." And he says, "Well, what am I going to find in there? Only what you take with you." And what does he take in there? He takes his fear, and he takes his anger, and he finds Vader, because that's what Vader is. And then, you know, the helmet explodes, which is another amazing behind the scenes story. But the helmet explodes and he finds himself, and it's like, wait, what? And as a kid, I was like, what the fuck?
It's an amazing scene because It's
you-
one of the
you-
only moments in the originals that is like there's no dialogue. It's like just pure symbolism, and you have to figure it out.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, and then you grow up and you realize, oh, yeah, he brought fear and anger into the cave, and he was confronted with his own fear and anger. If he continues this way, he'll be Vader.
Yeah,
But
I mean, there's definitely some level of foreshadowing too that he is related to Vader, and Vader went a similar path that he's going down. But as a kid, I just was like, why is his head in the helmet? I don't know. It was very, very confusing. But it's the same way with all these Dark Force visions. That's why I think so many people are confused about the one in the comics where, Shmi is there and Sidious is supposedly creating Anakin. That didn't happen. It was a Dark Force vision. That was the dark side testing him to see if he was strong enough. Right, and there's so many other things that happen in his visions that didn't actually happen in real life, but people misunderstand them. So I think those, but that's partly, I think they're confusing because it's confusing to the characters and to us, and we have to spend a lot of time. Like Rey in the cave, I'm still trying to think through that.
I don't get that scene at all.
I've heard some great
Yeah.
TikToks about that
That's-
I think helped me a lot, but I mean, I wasn't there yet, so I'm like, but there's something to this, right? Like
Yes.
they're not helping them. None of these Dark Force Nexus spots are actually helping these people.
No, it's a temptation. It's showing you, like, so the whole point of the dark side is to give you what you want, but take it away at the same time. Rey is looking for herself and for a family, and so what she finds in the cave is a bunch of herself. And the cave is telling her, you can be your own family. You can make your own family. You're strong enough without all of these other people.
Yeah, and going back to the cave, and like if you think about it really weirdly, because like each character of the main like protagonists get their own like cave moment. Obviously, you get the literal cave moments with Rey, Luke, and Kylo in the comics, and then you got Anakin with other couple things like the Temptations. So I feel like with any type of essential like hero's journey in Star Wars, it's very essential to have this moment where they get tempted with this, and they get tested with their anger and that kind of stuff. So overall, I think the cave sequence in Empire Strikes Back is one of the most essential parts to Luke's character arc.
I think what's also something to note is that you have to think about Luke in this time. He thinks he is the hot shot of the galaxy. I mean, he just blew up the Death Star coming from nothing. He probably thinks he is invincible and he can do anything. And then he goes into the cave thinking, okay, if I bring my lightsaber, I should be able to beat whatever's in front of me because I just blew up the Death Star. I'm big bad Luke Skywalker. And then he has big time reality check.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. No offense to those of you who are like 19, 20. I've done 20 years old. I've got a teenage daughter. And I would say more than most, they're pretty aware of their lack of being able to do anything. But most of us at that age feel like we can do anything. We're on top of the world. Yeah, that's
What
kind
are
of
you
where
talking
go.
about, Kevin? I can do literally everything.
Talk to me in 10 years and let me know how that went. But one thing that I think is cool, you don't necessarily, you don't need any outside media to understand the films. A lot of people get bent out of shape when we start bringing up comics and books and other things. So the films stand alone fine, but there are other media that can expand on these things and help us to see even cooler stuff that we didn't see in the films. So like in the book called From a Certain Point of View, they've done 2 of these now for the 40th anniversaries of these films. And the one for Empire Strikes Back came out last year. And there's a chapter in there called Vergence. And it's from the perspective of the cave, like a personification of the cave, like it's thinking. And when Yoda first arrives on the planet, he goes through that cave too. So Yoda's been through the cave. He's seen, his failures with Ahsoka and so many other failures materialize for him in the cave. And the cave is kind of frustrated that it can't beat Yoda. Like it feels like it's kind of been, weakened or whatever. But it's a really interesting short story. I would recommend these to anybody who would like to see more from these films. I'm excited about the one for The Return of the Jedi when it comes out.
Yeah.
Isn't there something cool with something on Dagobah, right?
Well, I know like I was referring to the Rise of Kylo Ren comics, literally he breaks the cave on Dagobah. Like he destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that was the end of that.
But yeah, and now let's kind of move towards the rest of the film. So, talked about Luke on Hoth up to Dagobah. Talked about Luke on Dagobah and the lessons he kind of learns. And now Luke's like, all right, my friends need my help. Screw you, Yoda. I don't need any more training. I'm gonna go kill Vader. Like, whoa, slow down there, buddy. You were just farming for moisture, like a few hours ago. Not literally, and now you're going to fight one of the biggest guys in the entire universe.
For your failure in the cave. Yeah.
And also, the best quote ever: "Do or do not. There is no try." That was my senior quote. I had to bring it up.
I loved how that was done in Rebels. He's like, oh, I didn't really understand that either.
Yes.
What does it mean? Anyway, yeah.
Sorry, Pam, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So, you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it really is like the cave thing on a larger scale, like Kevin was saying. Remember your failure in the cave. I mean, he brings his weapons to Bespin, and that's what he gets.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What kind of blew my mind recently was I thought about it, and if Luke had stayed on Dagobah, literally nothing else in that story would have changed, because he didn't stop Vader, he didn't save Han. They all left in the Falcon without him at first, until he's dangling, from the city with one hand less. Like, he would have finished his training, and he would have had both hands, and he would have gone into the third movie better equipped. But nothing else in that story would have changed.
I would say, I mean, him learning that Vader is his dad, he might have learned that later in this hypothetical. But I think that definitely plays a lot into, he's determined to not kill him at that point, even though Obi-Wan was telling him to kill him. So I think Luke, who knows, he might have even listened to Obi-Wan if he didn't know. But.
Yeah.
I mean, he did try, and you read those in the comics as well, the Star Wars comics. And, they had actually multiple altercations, and he tried his best to end Vader, and he just didn't do it.
Yeah, I think so. The whole end of that movie, it really starts with Luke not being able to lift the X-Wing because he doesn't believe he can do it. It's got nothing to do with how powerful he is. It has nothing to do with his mastery over the Force. He doesn't believe it. And that's exactly what Yoda says. He's like, I don't believe it. And that is why you fail.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing when he's really confronted with another Force user and someone who is more trained and more equipped. You can see that he starts off that fight and he's gung-ho. And then Vader stops playing around and starts throwing things at him with the Force, and he's like, wait a minute. You can fight and use the Force at the same time. Oh, and you really see like his confidence just break down, and he starts getting on his back foot, and he gets pushed to the weather vane, and he gets his arm chopped off, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
The way he just swings wildly at that point, you can tell he's exhausted. And you see some of that in the fights in the sequel trilogy too, and people like to make fun of those, but I'm like, that's the story. They're telling a story. Luke was worn out. Stuff was flying, and Vader's just like, yep, this one. He's just not even breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
Luke, can he sweat still? I don't know. But Luke is just exhausted and broken as a person, and he can't fight anymore. Yeah. But then he's like, before that, he's like, you'll find I'm full of surprises. That confidence just went.
Yeah.
And like the thing is, like, Luke needed that failure. If Luke, I see, everyone gives him shit for leaving, but like that's his character. Like, his friends need help. It doesn't matter that he's not equipped to do it. And I like the one quote from Yoda that I don't like is he's telling Luke, if you take the quick and easy path like Vader did. That's not what he's doing. He wants to stay here. He can't. Yeah. It's not the right thing to do. His friends need help. He truly believes that he can do something to make a difference. So he's not going to stick around and play it safe when his friends need help.
Oh, Oh, sorry. Because I was gonna say, like, especially since, like, if you think about it from A New Hope to Empire, Luke is kind of like the center of the rebellion. Like, so like the rebellion kind of just view him again as hope. So he's in this like weird status of like, well, they need me.
But I think he understands that Leia, it's not Han. He doesn't leave for Han. He understands that Leia is the rebellion. And so he's like, well, no, like they're all in trouble, but like if she gets captured, we're screwed.
Yeah.
So like I said, he does that. And I think, like I said, he needed that failure because he had to understand that he can't put off his training anymore. And that's when he really like, yeah, he's going around and he's doing stuff, but like the next time you see him, he's a Jedi Knight. Like the only thing that's missing is his final trial, but like he's a Jedi Knight the next time you see him. Like he understands that without using this side of himself that he's constantly been putting off, he won't make it. So yeah, he doesn't formally train with Yoda to attain the rank, but he's focusing on that between films.
Right. How much of him wanting to go rescue Leia do you think has to do with their last encounter, where she gave him that big kiss? Anyway, I didn't want to say it, but I did it.
I honestly like if you like with what I know about Luke and just bringing it back to A New Hope, like that might be part of it, but it doesn't really.
They're
like,
his friends. It's
the same thing. It's the same thing
he
with
does care
Owen.
about them, and he feels a connection to her. Like,
yeah,
it's obvious, even though retcon obvious. That wasn't the way it was going to play out originally in the scripts. But looking back, you can see his connection to her and how she's force sensitive too, when she senses that he needs help.
Yeah.
And just going back to like Beru and Owen, like the one thing in the world he wants to do is leave. And the one thing he never does is leave until he doesn't have a choice. Yeah. Like they blew up the family farm, but like he can't stay there. Like even if they were just like, dead, like he can't stay there. He understands that. And so he's like, okay, well now I have a bigger obligation. But like his first thing that he always tries to do is protect his family. And these are his new family. And so it's who Luke always has been, and so we'll get to episode 8, but like, no, that's who Luke is. It's who he's always been. His first thought is protect his family.
Yeah, especially going forward into Return of the Jedi, he wants to bring back his father and protect his family.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a good kind of like segue into Return of the Jedi. So. Obviously, again, like X-Core was saying, by the point we see Luke Return of the Jedi, it's kind of like how we see Ezra in season 3 of Rebels. Like he's very much has changed and evolved as like a completely different person by the point we see him Return of the Jedi. People always tend to forget the fact that he shows up in black. So obviously I gotta ask, what were your original thoughts? Obviously, because I know it's hard to do because you guys were kids when you saw Return of the Jedi, but what were your original thoughts when you saw Luke show up into Jabba's palace? Or it could be updated thoughts on a rewatch.
So there's a viewing order that I like to rewatch Star Wars in. It's not an order that I would recommend for a first watch, but when I rewatch it, I like to watch episodes 4 and 5 and then watch the prequels and then watch episode 6, because you end 5 with Luke getting an offer to join the dark side, and then you watch Anakin's journey, and then when you get back to Luke, it really feels like more time has passed because of what you watched. And so when you see him force choke a guard, you're like, he's acting a little bit Anakin-like. I just saw Anakin doing similar stuff. So, but obviously, my first experience with it, I don't really remember. But on rewatches, that's always how it feels, and I think that's pretty cool.
That's an interesting way to do it. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because you just see this guy who's they're close, obviously their father and son, doing the same exact things. Huh.
Yeah, and
I'll have to do that.
the reason that I put 4 and 5 before is because it preserves the "I am your father."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You also see with both of those characters, their wardrobe gets darker and darker as it goes, right? Like, so by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, Luke, is he going to turn to the dark side because he's in these dark robes? We didn't really have enough Star Wars lore at that point to kind of infer that as much as we might now, but I think we can now see what Lucas was going for, like with the force chokes and the dark clothes, this shadowy figure. But then, there's the hopeful music when R2 spits out the lightsaber and they, do the flips and all that stuff. So it kind of turns around and he gets, we see he's clearly on the light side, but he's definitely changed a lot by the time we see him.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And like, that is one of my favorite sequences, probably in all of Star Wars. Just Luke shows up and he's like, yeah, we're doing this. And then, like, I love how he talks to Jabba. Like, he's not afraid. He's not threatening him. He's just, you're going to do what I say or bad things. Like, I mean, he is threatening him, but he's like,
destroyed.
He's like, you can literally let us go and that will be the end of it. Nothing more will come of this. Or I'm going to end your syndicate. Your choice. And he gives him that choice.
That's a little dark too, but I also like it. People love to say, oh, that was a bunch of unnecessary whatever. The movies are unnecessary. Who cares?
Well,
it's fun. The whole sequence is a lot of fun.
The whole time you're watching Return of the Jedi, you're supposed to be wondering if Luke is on the path to the dark side, because it's what Yoda warned him about. It's what he got offered. You're supposed to be thinking, wait, is he a bad guy now? Like, yeah, he's saving his friends, but like,
he's choking.
Like Ezra, where he seems to be dabbling.
That's the thing too. Yeah, he's definitely dabbling because he comes in really not the most peaceful way. I mean, like X4 was saying, it's like, let us go or this will come of you. Like, that's pretty dark, I think, as far as Luke goes. And then later, Jacob was talking about the wardrobe, and later when he makes that decision to not kill Vader, I mean, he's got that little flap that comes out, and you can see he's still light on the inside. So yeah, I definitely like what Lucas did with that.
Yeah, because in A New Hope, he's dressed in all white. Then in Empire, he's mostly dressed in gray. And then in Return of the Jedi, he's dressed in all black. It's a cool little... Yeah, it's just genius.
It's interesting to note the color choices, because in one of the commentaries, maybe multiple, that Lucas talks about that scene where Luke is fighting Vader on the Death Star, and it's two guys dressed in black fighting against a black background. Like, it was really difficult to light that scene to actually make it. Now it popped. They did a good job, but I know that was one of the things that took them the longest to try to figure out, how do you actually make it so that, because we can't just suddenly brighten up the place, and we're not going to suddenly turn Luke into wearing white colored clothes. Yeah, interesting. We don't always think about that as an audience, but we're not supposed to. We're supposed to kind of experience it, and then we go back and look at it and think about, like the stuff Peyton was talking about. It's really cool. So many layers.
Yeah. So again, that's a great way of putting that. And again, since I feel like that's a good transition into, again, the later half of the film, because again, like from a perspective, I feel like splitting it into two halves of Luke character arc. You have obviously the Jabba Palace section, and then you have him going to Endor and the second Death Star to encounter his father. So obviously, I gotta ask the question of, what are your thoughts on Luke's growth from Empire's perspective to Return of the Jedi, and more specifically the ending sequence of Return of the Jedi? Again, open floor discussion, just like any of the other questions.
Now let's just cover the whole ending sequence, because it's
a
lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah, this is. I have two favorite lightsaber duels. There's this one on the Death Star, and there's the one on Crate, which I'm sure we'll get to. This is it for Luke Skywalker. Like, until we got The Last Jedi, like, this is really the last you see of the guy, and this whole sequence is amazing. Like, he doesn't want to kill Vader, and everyone was like, "Oh, well, he didn't beat Vader. Vader wasn't trying to." Like, he wasn't trying to kill his dad either. Like, they were fighting. He was holding his own with Darth Vader. Like, nobody gives him any credit for that. And then they'll turn around and you know how that goes with the sequel trilogies, but like he wasn't trying to kill his father. Vader wasn't trying to kill him. He was trying to turn his father and not follow the dark side himself. And then Vader threatens his sister, and all bets are off. And he beats the brakes off his old man. Like, I don't know how anyone could say like, oh, Vader was trying not to get killed by his son and almost lost that fight and his life and his hand and his lightsaber. Like, there's no two ways about it. And then, like the best part about this whole fight is he cuts off his dad's hand and immediately looks at his own hand and goes, wait a minute. If I do this, I'm going to be just like him. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. And that was
a great moment. And he just,
and that's when he stops.
He just looks down and he sees this is you know, and
he's just like, wait a minute.
From Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett shot him on the head, right? Yeah.
Boba Fett shot him.
And so you see that damage, and it's kind of, that's part of his journey too. He's already starting to carry baggage from that stuff. And I think we kind of skipped over the sequence, I think, of him going back to Dagobah to talk to Yoda, and he's like, so I am a Jedi. And then he has a whole revelation of, is he really my father? And then from a certain point of view and all that good stuff. So he's dealing with this baggage the whole time he's on Endor Moon, the Force Moon, with his friends. And then he tries to tell Leia, and then he's like, well, ask me later and I'll tell you. Then when he finally reveals it to her, it's like, here's a mature Luke finally. You know, there's more, and it won't be easy for you to hear, but you must hear it. And he's not the impetuous kid anymore. He's being like the Jedi master, not quite, but getting there, and just having to explain to her exactly what happened. And, you know, he's your father, and he looks at her like, what's her reaction going to be? But for him to get ready for that fight with Vader that way and to start peacefully, but still not perfect. He's not perfectly in control because, like you were saying, X-Core, your sister, and he's like, and he tries to Luke crap at that point. He's like, you're done. I'm ending you right now. And then he has that moment where he looks at his hand, and the cackling of the Emperor, I think, kind of made him think like, I definitely don't want to be like that guy.
But then the whole sequence going up to the second Death Star with Luke and Vader talking is it's like just really, because like we see him just talking to him. It's like you're not Darth Vader, you're my father, and he truly believes that. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Grown up and matured the way he handles that whole thing.
Yeah.
You've only forgotten.
Yeah. It's a lot different from when we saw him in like look at the character growth from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi. That scene right there just like completely shows all the growth that he's made.
Yeah.
And Peyton, what's your opinions on the ending?
He's no longer going to the Tashi station to pick up some power converters.
He has that stuff delivered now.
Yeah, that Luke is gone. I mean, I love that moment at the end, like you guys were talking about, when he throws down his lightsaber. And it makes me think, what would have happened if he didn't, like, he has the same moment, but he doesn't throw away his weapon. I mean, that's a big part of it, because whenever he brings his weapon into a conflict, he ends up using it. So the fact that he throws it and he kind of eliminates that option for himself, he truly able to like act with peace. Because if the Emperor struck him and he had a lightsaber in his hand, you'd think he would impulsively, block it or something. So I think that's really important. That sets the chain of events for the rest of the scene of, Vader saving him, and I just love it. And I think that really plays into The Last Jedi, but I'm sure we'll get into that when we get to that movie.
Yeah, and I love that scene that Kev brought up with Leia, because he's conflicted. He doesn't want to kill his dad when he goes back to Dagobah. He's like, I'm not going to do this. And then he gets to talking with Leia, and she's like, well, why do you even have to confront him? Like, run away, go somewhere we won't find you. And he's like, you don't understand. There's nowhere I'm going to go that I'm ever going to be free of him. And again, it's his conversation with Leia. He is going to do this, even if it means his life, to protect his friends. Because if there's nowhere he can go that Vader won't find him, that means there's nowhere he can go that Vader won't find her or use her against him. He understands that his friends are his weakness, and he even says it when he's going through the checkpoint. He's like, Vader's on that ship. I'm endangering the mission. I shouldn't have come. Like,
your imagination, kid.
No,
Yeah.
it's he understands.
really
Like, he understands how important this all is. He understands that, yeah, he's the guy that blew up the Death Star, but he's not. He understands that he's not the rebellion, whatever anybody else thinks of him. And that's one of the, like I said, it's why I relate to him so much. Even when he is the most important guy in the room, he doesn't ever feel like he's the most important guy in the room to himself.
I like, if you think about how long he took just by the fact of the circumstances, but to think through what he wanted to do with Vader, like he had that, trip from, to whatever time between the two movies, right? Like the year, and then, flying to Dagobah, flying back from Dagobah, fighting on the moon. This whole time he's thinking about, what am I going to do with my father? And we get to him in The Last Jedi. He doesn't step back and take a moment to think about what he should do with Kylo Ren, with Ben. And so he has that impetuous moment, which he's known for. And then he does think about it. So he stops himself way faster than he would have at the same age as Kylo, which is what age he was in Return of the Jedi, 23. And he does stop himself. But like, people are like, oh, he would never act like that. Well, he also had a lot of time to think about it when he was younger. And so he didn't go, but then as soon as Vader says, your sister, perhaps she will. And yeah, he loses it. So it's very much in Luke's character. We'll get there. I'm jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
It's exciting when you're talking about that scene. There's so much depth to it, I think.
Yeah.
And he gets carried away. Right when he says your sister, he just gets carried away, and then he's like, wait, I am doing like exactly what Yoda told me not to do. And like Brooke said in the chat, I'm a Jedi like my father before me is like chills and such. Like, that's such a good quote.
And now, young Jedi, you will die. And that's like so like, and the other thing about the him not finishing his training, and like we don't know any of this because it wasn't written yet, but like, if he had stayed, he would have known how to do like the Yoda hand trick. Like, no, I'm good. but if he does that, Vader doesn't save him. Vader doesn't fulfill the prophecy and all that stuff that people are saying about all that noise. So it's like, the events of the movie happen for a reason, and I'm not giving George any credit for knowing those abilities before he wrote this one, but it's like, you have to understand, like, the series of events happens so that Luke can grow, and if they don't, I don't think the rebellion wins.
Right. It's kind of like the 1 in 14 million, whatever.
It's those possibilities, because if Luke doesn't lose his hand, if Luke doesn't learn that Vader's, I don't think Yoda or Obi-Wan was ever gonna fucking tell him. Like, we need that guy gone. But then again, it's like, well, nobody really knows how to deal with Palpatine either. Like, Yoda couldn't beat him.
I like the dialogue between Palpatine and Luke, and that just for each scene that they keep showing them together and how they're kind of bantering back and forth, and it shows Luke's confidence, but it's justified confidence at that point. He's like, your overconfidence is your weakness. Your faith in your friends is yours. Like he gets Palpatine to kind of lose his cool, which I love. I think it's always good to, get your opponents off center. It might have something to do with my strategy for content, but the way Luke responds, he responds back, and Palpatine he's not as in control as he thought he was. Like, you can kind of see that in his head a little bit.
Yeah, and then Luke goes to strike down Palpatine, and luckily Vader blocked him. Because if Luke strikes Palpatine down, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah, the way it's been written now, the way the story has worked, like, it seems pretty clear that if it had all been, real life, that that could have been Palpatine's plan all along, was to take over Luke's body, right? Like he was trying to do with Rey. Strike me down. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very similar dialogue in Rise of Skywalker, so that's always. I think the novelization actually touches upon that, if I remember correctly.
It does. It absolutely does. It combines those moments, or shows how they're parallel.
And obviously, I mean, I don't think that's obviously probably not the intention at the time of making Return of the Jedi. But what's great about Star Wars is that you have all these different creative minds. It's like they all add to it and expand upon it. I mean, the fact that it's been going for this long and there isn't like a humongous plot hole contradiction that breaks the whole story, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and, like one line of your father fought in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And look what we got out of that.
Yeah.
Or the
Seven
call
seasons
in A New
and
Hope.
3
We got a whole
movies.
film for that too.
And one of the things to touch on
Yeah.
what Kevin said, he's getting Palpatine off center. And one of the things Palpatine says in the comics that's really cool is he's talking to Vader and he says, anger, hatred, these are powerful tools, but if you go too far, they will enslave you. And that's exactly what Luke does to him. That's exactly how he loses. It's how he loses both times. He gets so angry and so drunk on power that he doesn't see what's going on around him.
Yeah.
Yeah, his overconfidence really was his weakness too, right? So
It's the trap. It's the trap of the dark side. Like it
Right.
gets you drunk. It gets you drunk on power, and you don't see what's going on everywhere else.
Peace. Yeah. To think about what you were talking about, X-Core Gamer, in terms of the way it ended up, not necessarily Lucas understanding all the things planned out as much as he likes to make people think that he had it all planned out, but the big like strokes where Lucas wanted us to be able to see Luke's growth, Palpatine's fall, Vader's, redemption. That's one thing I think that George Lucas did very, very well, was to really kind of build that part of the story and let the other stuff sort of take care of itself. And so, I've given him a lot of grief over the years for some of the dialogue and things, and I'm glad that we had some of the people that helped him with the original trilogy. But even in the films where I think the dialogue is weak, those story beats, he gets how to tell a story. Like that man knew how to show a character's growth, in my opinion. From farm boy or whatever to this Jedi master. That wasn't, like we said in the chat here, like it wasn't just about his level of training. Once you get to a certain level of training, you're suddenly able to beat other people because power scaling. That's all bullshit. That doesn't even exist in Star Wars. It's about your attitude toward the Force and toward everybody else. And like Yoda says again on Dagobah, if once you go down the dark path forever, will it dominate your destiny? And he's like, well, how will I know the good from the bad? When you are at peace, passive, when you the Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. He's still learning that lesson throughout Return of the Jedi, because he goes to attack Jabba.
Yeah.
I mean, he says it's defense, but he eggs him on, right? Like,
Yeah.
When he goes
At me,
to
bro.
attack Palpatine.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And he's still in that moment having to grow, like until finally at the very end, he's like, okay, now I learned the lesson. So, and that whole thing is so intense. And the way Lucas also had these battles going on multiple fronts, that's a staple of Star Wars. Not every movie franchise ever does that, but now the ones that I love all do that. Like you've got at least 3 battles going on at any one time. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Lucas really understood the hero's journey better than a lot of people. Like he understood what makes the hero's journey, and that's what makes this Star Wars resonate with so many people. And I was talking about Visions with another creator on TikTok, and they're like, why? It's just, he was like, it's so interesting that all of these stories have so many of the same beats and elements, and it's like, well, that's because like Star Wars is sort of a universal language, and that's because of the way it's written. It's like, this is a universal story. This is a story that's been being told for generations. And one of the things that I love about sort of movies and storytelling is everybody wants the same thing but different.
Yeah.
Like just give me the same thing you've already seen a million times, put a unique spin on it, and that's what people want to see.
Yep.
100%. And I feel like that's kind of the main kind of like it's so weird. Like the sequel trilogy criticism went from Force Awakens is too similar, Last Jedi is too different, but like it's like pick a lane.
I had somebody
For sure.
write in the comment section. It's like, oh, I want to see new ideas. I don't want to see reused old ideas. I'm like, then you don't like any Star Wars, because there isn't really an original idea in any of Star Wars.
I've had people comment, even in the same comment, about how the sequel trilogy is just a complete copy of the original trilogy. The original trilogy is great. The sequel trilogy sucks. I'm like, which is it? Because the only difference is that it's Rey and not Luke, and girl power. And I'm just like, you're telling on yourself right there. You're really telling on yourself.
Sure.
I mean, it's like they hate repetition and it being too similar, but they also hate new ideas. It's like an interesting one, and this has to do with Luke, that I constantly see is it's out of character for him to ignite his saber on Ben, right? But then it's also a retreading of something he already did, and that's two similar characters. You know, he's grown beyond that. Why are you repeating the same thing? So it's like, is it something that he's done, or is it out of character? He would never do that, because you're admitting that he's done that.
Yeah. So that's a good bridge to Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So what is, I'm sure all you guys are Last Jedi fans, and like Luke's arc in The Last Jedi. And one thing I always say is, like, I'll be having an argument with someone about Luke and Last Jedi, whatever. It's like, would you really want Star Wars to not build on any new characters and just have Luke Skywalker come in and destroy the First Order? Because that's not interesting.
Yes.
The Last Jedi
Jedi
asks people that, like, straight up at the beginning of the movie. Luke is like, what, you think, what, you came to the movies to see me do this? Like, did you not remember how in the last movie I was in hiding? Like, you know, there's a reason for that.
Yes. So, what's your guys' thoughts on just Luke in general during the sequel era?
This is where the fun begins.
Like, I would absolutely have watched that trilogy of movies, but like, everyone's mad at Disney for not giving us that trilogy of movies, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it again. It is George Lucas's fault that you did not get the trio from the original trilogy with the sequels. It's nobody else's fault. He waited 20 years, and like, so when I was a kid, like, the internet wasn't, like, not everybody had the internet. Nobody had it in their pocket. Like, that wasn't a thing. So when I first started hearing rumors that they were doing another trilogy, I was like, holy shit, we're going to see Luke again. I was fucking wrong. And so everyone's mad at Disney. And like, this is like, we talk about sequel hate versus prequel hate. It's the same. It's the same. And I would say that the prequel hate was worse. It just, like, the internet wasn't as big of a thing, because like, everyone was like, oh, we get to see them again. No, you don't. And then everyone was mad about that. Like, that's like, and I was like, oh, well, it's prequels. Okay, I'll go watch them. It's Star Wars. It's one of my favorite things in the universe. But like, everyone was mad about it. And now you have a time frame when those actors aren't going to do that story. They're too old, and everyone's mad at Disney for it. It's like, you did you skip class that day?
Yeah, and they wanted the EU novels to become the movies, and then they get mad at Kathleen Kennedy for saying, you know, we don't have comics and books to base off of like Marvel. She was right. The books and comics always are based on the films, not the other way around like it is in Marvel. Marvel has a backlog of whole universes created that they can draw from for the films. But Lucas also hated Mara Jade, and he never was going to do anything with those books. He only allowed them because they made money for Lucasfilm. And I'm not trying to paint the guy as a evil capitalist or whatever, because he certainly wouldn't want to be painted in that kind of light. But that's true. He said, no, none of this stuff happened, and that's not the movies I would make. So we got the sequels. And then when you understand that he killed off Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first movie because he didn't want him sitting around doing nothing in the final battle, Like that is on the audio commentary track for the DVD, and I've posted that a couple of times on TikTok, and kind of like people are baffled by that. I'm like, yeah, he just kind of casually says, well, I had to kill him off because it didn't make sense to keep him. But that's how Force Ghost became a thing, because he still wanted him to be able to show up in the next movie.
Right. He's like, I still need him. I still need him to do stuff. He just can't be a side character because, like, I saw some weird animation or something where Ben lives and he's the one that makes the Death Star shot. Like, he gets it. Yeah, dude. I don't. It was crazy. I don't know where I saw it because I was either on TikTok or YouTube or something. But like, yeah, it's Ben in an X-wing, and I'm just like, yeah. Can we get a Star Wars?
The
What
Halloween Lego Star Wars special has some of that in it.
Yeah.
So,
I think, no, that's what it was. That's what it was.
Recommend it. It's still Luke that made the shot, but it was by accident. It was like making a goal in the other team's basket, and it counts for them, and he was real mad about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
that's What If. People have been saying we need What If for Star Wars. We got it. It's Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. Go watch it, or the Halloween.
Yeah, the terrifying tales.
I was watching it earlier. I didn't finish it, but
yeah,
I was enjoying myself.
I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you.
I've not watched it.
I couldn't remember where I saw that because I've been consuming way too much media lately.
There's a lot more.
My brain just like, where is this from?
I'm glad that I had seen the Lost Boys before I watched that. Sorry, go ahead, Kev.
No, that's all right. So, having Luke actually show up and face down the whole First Order with a laser sword, like he predicted, kind of sarcastically, like people act like, well, they just killed him off and it was a wasted death. No, he literally saved the Resistance and the Jedi, like in one fell swoop. That's what he did there, and he did the most Jedi thing ever. What Yoda taught him on Dagobah: use the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. He didn't attack Kylo Ren. He just let Kylo Ren fall apart, basically, like kind of like he did with Palpatine. Yeah, that whole sequence in The Last Jedi was more than what we got from Ben in the original first film, A New Hope, but it's still very similar to that. And he had to die off just like Qui-Gon Jinn died in the first, episode 1.
Yeah.
Like, this is just the pattern. And for people who love Star Wars but get mad that, like, the empty or formulaic, come on. It's a formula is why you like it. So it's okay to just don't jump onto whatever criticism you see on a YouTube channel because it's trendy to make that criticism. Like, people should learn to think for themselves.
I've seen a lot of people talk about that comment that Luke makes, like, oh, what am I going to do? Face off the whole First Order with a laser sword? And they get so mad and say that the writing is bad because they say, oh, well, the writing makes no sense because he says he's not going to do it and then he does it. It's like, how do you not understand the setup, the payoff, and the character arc? Like, I don't. How did it's all over your head?
It's called foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And he's
refusing the call to adventure again, and now then at the end he finally does it. Yeah.
Like, he's like that. That's why this is my favorite lightsaber battle of all time, is because it's Luke finally doing the thing. Like, it's Luke finally doing the thing, but he's doing it in the most Jedi way possible. He's not there. He cannot hurt Kylo Ren. He can't do anything physically to him. He's not there. But
so technically, he's not facing down the First Order. So I guess he didn't lie, right? Because people are like, "He's not even a real lightsaber battle. He wasn't even there."
But and he's like, he can't. He saves the Resistance, and he does it in the most Jedi way possible by using the Force for knowledge and defense, and never for attack. And we get a really cool new Force ability out of it.
Yeah,
and he
also that Force ability hasn't been seen anywhere since. And I want to see I want to see them do more with that because
I like how they set it up too, where Kylo Ren is looking at Rey and says, "You're not doing this. The effort would kill you."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
I think people had such high, it's not like expectation. Like, people wanted Luke in The Last Jedi when Leia was holding out her lightsaber for Luke to just come into the Resistance and completely save the day. And whenever Luke threw the lightsaber behind his back, I think you lost 75% of your audience, and they didn't pay attention. They're like, no, this is bullcrap. This is not the Luke that I wanted.
Yeah.
I think
And
so too.
it's a huge problem.
Yeah, I was like, initially when I saw, I was like, what? And then you watch the film, and you're like, oh, he's Yoda. Like, that's his role in this movie. He's Yoda. Like, you expect him to be the hero because that's who Luke is, but then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, he's Yoda. And again, this is a passing of the torch to the next generation. Like, Disney's whole plan, and I hate to say Disney because it's not, like, that's another thing I have to even myself catch. Like, people say, oh, Disney this, Disney. It's not. It is literally Lucasfilm. The people running Lucasfilm now have been the people who were basically running Lucasfilm this entire time. They just weren't George. They've been working there for decades. They have been working and learning from George, learning the way he tells stories, learning about the Force in his universe. This is not Disney. Disney just gave them a whole bunch of money and said, make more stuff, please.
Yeah. And sorry.
So like I said, like, he's Yoda. Like, the whole plan was for this sequel trilogy to send off the old timers and give the young kids however many more trilogies, however many more movies. And the fans just lost their minds because they couldn't comprehend that George had squandered that opportunity. So they're mad about it.
Well,
This isn't my Star Wars. No, it's not your Star Wars. You were never going to get that. And so, yeah, Luke isn't Luke Skywalker in this movie. He's Yoda. He's a little bit of Obi-Wan, but he's mostly Yoda. He's the crazy old hermit who doesn't want to train any kids, especially not one so impetuous and leading towards the dark side. Gee, I wonder where I saw that before.
Yeah, a lot of people get mad at him throwing the saber, but, like, if you think about what we've seen of Luke up until that point, what good had he done with a saber? His greatest achievements were not with a saber. His greatest achievement was when he threw his saber.
And the last time he held that saber is the last time he had that hand.
Yeah.
Well,
Think about that. And all the daddy issues and everything that went along with that saber. He didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
right. And also, the last time he had held a lightsaber was over Ben, probably. And what I love about him, I love that whole thing about him not actually physically being on Crate. And I hear people all the time say, oh, well, why couldn't he have just physically gone there and fought Kylo? That would have been super awesome. And it's like, on a surface level, maybe, but think about what the character is going through for 2 seconds. It's like, he's not going to reconcile by fighting Kylo when his big mistake was holding the saber over Kylo. That makes no sense given the arc that he's going through.
Yeah,
That's a
like
really
the
good point.
whole reason that Ben isn't dead is because he didn't want to kill him.
Yeah, he never swung at him. People always jump in on Ben's own interpretation, like that's the truth. I'm like there are three retellings. We did it as a kid, the gossip chain or whatever, like so that we would understand that people have different perspectives on what actually happened.
And I love that.
It's just how media is.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Peyton.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I love that that multiple retellings. Rian Johnson took inspiration from Rashomon, which is an Akira Kurosawa movie, and a lot of Star Wars is based on Akira Kurosawa's work. It's heavily inspired by that. So the fact that Rian Johnson drew from an Akira Kurosawa movie, like that's Star Wars. People say The Last Jedi isn't Star Wars. I mean, I think that's amazing.
And I was just gonna say, like, even in that hut scene where like he's just holding, like they're just clashing sabers, like Kylo pulls the house down. I'm like, if he was really trying to kill Kylo, he wouldn't have let that happen. He would have like, we know he can force choke people. Like we know he's a Jedi Master for and it's heavily hinted at that he is the most powerful Force user besides Leia. Like not Anakin, Luke and Leia. Because once Vader turned, the Force was like, okay, now we have the twins, because that's the whole Freddie Prinze interview. Like, this is how this works.
Yes.
Like,
That dude went off, didn't he?
oh my god, and it's
great.
so great.
Yes.
Such a good interview.
It's amazing.
My favorite thing about that is he's just like, this is what I learned about the Force. I learned it from Dave. They've learned it from George. Like, this is how it works.
Pass on what you have learned.
I used to hate the concept of midichlorians because it's like, oh well, but no, it's like it makes sense even if you watch the original trilogy, it makes sense. You don't level up in the Force. You don't. You can connection to it. You can deepen your connection to it, but you can never grow stronger in the Force. The Force chooses you. It gives you a level of power, and it's up to you how you use it. You cannot get stronger in the Force. They never say you've grown stronger, ever.
It's like people just see the whole thing as a video game, not just the Force, but Luke as a character. Like, oh, he did something once. He had that triumphant moment in Return of the Jedi. He can never fall into old habits. Like, if you had so much confidence and you're rebuilding the Jedi Order, and he has, a lot of it is his arc in the original is about, self-awareness, self-understanding. He approaches things very maturely in Return of the Jedi. But then in The Last Jedi, I feel like he's hit a point where he feels like he understands himself and knows what he's doing so much that the old habits creep back up. I think that that's really realistic to actual human beings.
Yeah, and to think about Luke in that situation, as we've been saying this whole night, Luke, like, the things that he cares about most are his friends and his family, and his sister, who is the only family that he has and his closest family member, trusted him with her own son, and he failed her.
Yeah.
And to let that, like, just think about that. Like, I mean, that's gonna hit you hard, whether you're Luke Skywalker or whether you're one of us. And to say that, no, Luke shouldn't have done blah blah blah. I mean, come on, like, the man's gone through a lot, and that trust that he probably just feels extremely guilty that he lost Ben.
The other thing that people fail to understand about Luke Skywalker is that legacy means everything to Luke. And that's the last lesson he had to learn, is it's not someone else's legacy that you have to protect. Your legacy is what you leave behind. Because if you look at Luke in A New Hope, all he wants to do is be like his dad. What did he think about his dad? He was a space pilot. All he wants to do. Learns his dad is a Jedi. Okay, I'm going to be a Jedi. Learns his dad is Darth Vader. He gets dark. Thinks he can save his dad. He saves his dad. And then, okay, well, so now I'm the only Jedi. I have to protect that legacy. And so when he sees a student he can't help, he can't fix, his first reaction is to, okay, well, I have to fix this the only way I know how. And it's the wrong way. And so, like, and then he finally learns from Yoda, like, no, stop looking at the horizon, look at where you are, be in the here and now. And then that's what he does. But, like, legacy is what he's been focused on, whether it's his own legacy or his family legacy. And what he should be focused on is his own legacy and what he's going to give to each of his students. And that was his failing. And he'd never been a teacher before. So, like, it's a natural failing.
Well, as he explains to Rey too, the legacy of the Jedi is failure. And a lot of the fanboys didn't like to hear that. And the way he just summarily dismisses all the events of the prequels. I thought it was very interesting. Like, it's part of why this movie became my favorite Star Wars movie. Like, as I was watching it, even though I didn't understand the Canto Bight scene at all at the time, I still was like, I don't care. I'll figure that out later. I love this movie because the movie trolls like the Legends fanatics, and that type of fan a lot. Oh, Luke Skywalker, a legend. It's like, in my head, I'm thinking this is so meta, and they're not even going to get it, and they're going to get pissed off. And they did. They did not disappoint me at all. I mean, they did, but not because I was correct in my prediction. But yeah, they're still disappointing. But
That's so great.
People think that he ran away to be scared and like hide because he was sad. Yeah, he was deeply remorseful, but he went so the Jedi would end because he felt like the Jedi is the cause of Darth Vader and Kylo Ren and so much destruction. And so that's why he was literally there to die. And he let it happen naturally. He didn't off himself. but he was there to protect the galaxy from the Jedi. He had failed so much, and he thought, well, okay, I'm the legacy of the Jedi. I'm failure. This is all about failure. It's pretty dark, and I'll go even darker. Maybe he shouldn't have stopped himself when he was in the hut. I won't take any further questions.
Oh.
So,
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it,
I'll
don't
throw
do it
that out
way.
there as a possibility. Let's just think through that for a moment.
But
okay.
A lot of okay, maybe he should have stopped himself, but
I
still,
mean,
he wasn't
that's
wrong in his visions. He wasn't wrong.
Well,
What he
and
saw
that's-
actually happened.
That's the thing about every vision in Star Wars. Every Force vision comes true. The visions are sort of an oracle of Delphi. Like I have to think that's what George was thinking about, because every time that a character has a vision, that vision comes true, and most of the time it comes true because of what they try to do to stop it. That's a very Greek tragedy, very oracle of Delphi thing. Like.
It's like that scene in The Matrix where she says, "Don't worry about the vase," and he says, "What vase?" and it breaks, and she's like, "That vase. What's going to bake your noodle later is, would you have broken it if I hadn't said anything?"
Yeah,
I love that whole my brain.
yeah.
sorry, I mean,
Yeah, it's
I
like,
oh, sorry. Okay,
it's like,
you go.
would the vision have happened if Luke didn't turn on his lightsaber? I mean, you could argue that it wasn't Luke's fault. You could also, probably was, in my opinion, but
He was partly to blame, just like Obi-Wan felt responsible for the rise of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
That's why people compare Luke and Ben to Luke and Vader. Well, that's not a good comparison, because Luke didn't create Vader. He was born literally as Vader became Vader. And Obi-Wan did. And what did Obi-Wan do? He went to Mustafar to kill Vader, to kill Anakin. And it was premeditated. Now, he didn't end up doing it. I think he thought he did, maybe, but he couldn't bring himself to actually finish the deal. But that's where Luke was. He was doing exactly what his masters had done. Both of his masters. They also went into exile after they failed to kill the bad guy.
Well, it's an interesting juxtaposition, and I love it, because Obi-Wan did not want to kill Anakin. And instead of refusing to fight him, he turned him into the creature we know as Darth Vader. Whereas Luke didn't want to kill his dad. And instead of finishing it, he threw down his lightsaber. And he did everything he could not to fight.
Yeah.
Because if you watch that scene again, he's like, I don't want to fight you, but I will.
Mm-hmm.
Luke doesn't fight Vader until Vader stops him from doing what he's doing.
Yep.
Like,
And
Luke
like I
doesn't
said,
really initiate that fight.
Luke had no guilt with Vader, so it was a different dynamic. He felt all the guilt about Ben.
Yeah.
Even though Ben, as we learned, well, even then, he tells Rey, his heart had already been turned by Snoke. Doesn't mean there wasn't any chance of redemption, as we see at the very end, but it wasn't like it was a bad dream and then the lightsaber caused him to become bad. That's not what happened, as everybody likes to quote with the stupid memes. It wasn't even a dream. It was Luke seeing into his future, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole different dynamic. So,
Yeah.
I just, no, I don't think he should have killed his nephew, but maybe there was something else. If he had stepped away and walked around the hut a few times, maybe come back and, like, I don't know, put some shackles on the guy or something. I don't know. Let's have a talk, nephew.
something that Element 7 said, I think in a recent video of his that I saw on TikTok, was Luke didn't see light in Ben. You know, he saw light in Vader. He didn't see light in Ben. People always say, oh, well, this is the guy who saved Vader. How could he do this? And what Element said is, he's like, well, Rey is Ben's light. They're a dyad. She was meant to see the light in him. And I thought that was really cool. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. And people always forget about the vision, and because I feel like Last Jedi is really smart in a way where, like, a lot of Star Wars movies like to show you, like, what's going on. When, like, Luke goes into Ben's mind, all you hear is just pure sound effects. Like, you don't see anything of what Luke is seeing. For all you know, he could see Han dying, Leia dying, like, the Hoth needs something getting destroyed. Like, you don't know what he saw. And again, if I always, like, imagine, like, Luke sees Han dying, that's what caused that reaction to go. Because if you saw his best friend die like that at the hands of Kylo Ren, that would cause a reaction like that.
For
And
sure.
it's also Ben's father. It's like you kill your father. I saved my father. It's very different. So
It's
That's
hinted
probably
that
trigger
that
something.
is indeed what he saw, though. Like he's like, I saw the death and destruction of everything I cared about, billions of people. Like he saw the Hosnian Cataclysm. I'm sure he saw Han's death.
I think
Like,
the audio is the same for the Hosnian Cataclysm.
yeah, like it's hinted very
Okay.
heavily that like he saw all these. He says it. He says, I saw all these terrible things that he would do. And in a brief moment of weakness, I ignited my saber, and I was confronted with a scared kid.
People say all the time, like,
23-year-old. But yeah, he thought of him as a kid.
Well, I mean, I think of 23-year-olds as kids, and I'm 37, so it's,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
so
Same thing
it's
with like Wanda and Pietro. People were like, no, they were teenagers. No, they were in their 20s. Cap
Right.
is 100, okay? Or 90.
like people don't like. People say this all the time, and I didn't believe it until it happened to me. You turn 30, and shit is just like, wow. and I'm sure that happens again when you turn like 40, but like you turn 30 and you're like, holy shit, 20-year-olds don't know a fucking thing.
Perspective does matter. A lot of people on this app hate it when I bring that up, and I never do it to say I'm a better fan because I've been one longer. Because some people y'all's age know way more about Star Wars than I do, and that I totally am in awe. Everybody, my 10-year-old is just the biggest fan or bigger than me, right? But there is something about what my grandfather said to me. One of the few nuggets of wisdom he gave me is, I've been your age, you've never been mine. There's some wisdom there.
Yeah.
Like, I know what it's like to be your age, even though, like, the same thing with Luke. Like, I'm not quite as old as Luke was in The Last Jedi, but I've had enough crises in my life to kind of know what it feels like to run away and hide and think that that's better for the world than me going and actually trying to confront the things. It's rough. Like, watching Luke was rough, but that I just was so emotionally invested in his entire arc in that film.
And I didn't say that thing about 20-year-olds. I know you guys are all young. It's not about what you know. It's about what you've been through. Trust me. Like,
Exactly.
trust me. It's like I say this all the time. Like, I know a lot of stuff. I'm good at what I do, but there's guys that have been doing this for longer than I've been alive, and there is absolutely zero substitute for experience.
And there are a lot of 20-year-olds. I would put my sons in this group who have experienced more of life and are more mature than a lot of 40-year-olds.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some variability on all this stuff. It's just that a lot of 20-year-olds haven't experienced enough to have any kind of meaningful conversation about these things. You three definitely do. Like, this is a very good conversation. I feel like we're all pretty on the same level in terms of being able to think through this stuff together. But I've experienced a lot of shit, so hopefully you don't have to experience as much to enjoy the film, but it certainly doesn't hurt.
Well, it's like getting a job. When you get a job and you're right out of college, they look at like your grades and stuff. But if you've had a job for 20 plus years and you're trying to get a new job, they're not going to look at your college grades. They're going to look at the experience and everything that you've learned from the past 20 years of having that job.
I've never shown my transcript to anybody. They don't even ask me what my major was in, thankfully, because it's not related.
Yeah, it's just degree.
Yeah. All a college degree, like, once you've had a job, all a college degree means is that you sat through a bunch of classes, and they can expect you to sit through a bunch of classes again.
You guys are making me feel really good about college right now.
You prove that you can learn
No.
things. I mean, that's
Yes.
what the benefits for me as the hiring manager was. I would see that, okay, whatever it is, you've finished something, which is important to a job, and you can learn something. And whatever it is, if you're continually learning, like, I had a mentor once who's like, oh, I'm done learning. And then I was like, well, I'm done being your, Padawan or whatever. And I went and found a new mentor, because I think everybody should be learning their entire life. To me, that's what a college degree says. I've finished something I can learn.
Yeah. It shows that not only can you learn, but it shows that you can show up and do what you're supposed to do, and you can manage your time. Like,
right.
Because you're not expected to have work experience at that point.
Yeah.
Like, for myself, like, I have work experience, so they look at my education like, okay, you finished a few things. Okay, you can hold a job for, you can hold a job. That's what
All of that, counts more than what you studied or where you went to school.
Yeah.
Whether it was on Dagobah or Tatooine.
But yeah, I think that kind of might be a good place to wrap it up. Hereth, if you kind of want to close this out here.
Yeah. So obviously, again, we went into a lot of Luke's journey overall, but recently in a I remember where I read this correctly. I know it was like I think it was from Star Wars Newsnet, if I remember correctly. Again, they're about source. They don't really talk about stuff unless it's confirmed for the most part. And they said Lucasfilm has a current slate of 11 shows. We only know 7 of the 11. 7-11, but still. So I feel like it's pretty likely that one of these shows, since we know where The Mandalorian left off, is going to be a Luke Skywalker show of him rebuilding the Order. So I gotta ask, what would you kind of potentially want from that style of show? Again, open floor discussion, and also, who are you? Where can we find you?
I like to start off on this one, and this isn't even my idea. I got to give credit to Darth Chocolate for this, Darth Choco. I just thought this was such a brilliant idea when I heard him say it. I think on another podcast actually.
I think I know what you're about to say.
Yeah, I think I do too.
I would love to see a show, and it's probably gonna have to be animated at this point, just because that's the way it is with the actors and everything. But a show with Rey and Finn rebuilding the Jedi Order, where she has Luke's journals, and half the show is her reading Luke's journals, and then it flashes back to Luke building the Jedi Order back then, and we see his adventures with suddenly I forgot his name, the old dude that we see at the beginning of The Force Awakens.
Lord Santeca.
Lord
Force
Santeca.
And then young Ben going along, and that whole thing, like to see those two things going on in a kind of a flashback sequence that's pretty regular in a show would just be, I would just love it so much.
It's not like in Dooku Jedi Lost. I don't know if you guys read that, but half the book is it's not really spoilers, but like half the book is Asajj learning about Dooku's life and how he left the Order and that whole story, and then half of it is actually Asajj doing her own thing.
Yeah, so I will say this: I don't think it has to be.
And
animated.
Jake, where can we find you? Sorry.
Oh yeah, J. Kevin Parker, all smushed together on most every platform. On YouTube, I have my own different channel, different name. Find it through my link tree.
So I was just saying, I don't think it has to be animated, and the reason I'm saying this is because they hired the deepfake guy who redid that scene in The Mandalorian, which we didn't get to talk about, but I loved it. That seeing your hero come back is always awesome. But for a young Luke show, I want to see all that stuff. I want to see him spend some time with Grogu. I want that arc to finish and see what happens with that. I have a feeling Grogu ends up back with Din Djarin. I want to see how he finds these kids. I want to see that aspect of it. And I do want to see the Rey and Finn thing, but I want that to be its own thing.
Yes,
Rey and Finn deserve their own time in the spotlight. John Boyega and Daisy Ridley have become much less resistant to coming back. And the other thing that I absolutely want to see is I want to see Luke come across Danny DeVito as a bearish vow Jedi hanging out on a planet, because I think that would be amazing.
Yes.
He rolls up in his X-wing and you see Danny DeVito waddle out in his Jedi robes. He's like, what do you want?
What are you looking at? Yeah.
Listen, kid, I left the Order a long time ago. I didn't have a Padawan then. I don't want one now. He's like, who are you anyway? He's like, oh, you're Skywalker's kid? Whatever happened to him? Because he's just been living on this rock where nothing else is. And he has no idea what's going on. He's like, they wanted you to kill your father, kid?
Oh my god.
And you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Twitch. My handle is XCore Gamer Skills. It's the same everywhere. So if you see me anywhere, it's me. No, nobody has that name. And I also co-host the Conspiracy Cantina podcast with the illustrious Jedi Master Nepal, which was airing bi-weekly on Tuesdays, but there are changes coming to the date. The podcast isn't going anywhere, but we just have to figure out logistics.
Yes. And Peyton, same thing to you.
For me, I want to see more, I think, between 6 and 7. So between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. We saw a little bit of him in The Mandalorian, and that was great, but I want to see more of basically his rise to power and rebuilding the Order, like you guys were saying, because I think that really adds to The Last Jedi a lot, and I think it might even help a lot of fans who didn't like his arc in that film to kind of understand where it's coming from. And I want to see more of his relationship with Ben when Ben was younger, because I feel like if we got more of that, it would really help contextualize that moment in the hut. So I think the things that people don't like about the sequels, kind of similar with the prequels, if there's going to be shows that can add to the content and recontextualize everything, and I think that Star Wars as a whole is always better for it.
Exactly. And then where can we find you?
I am Peyton_JB on TikTok, and then my other usernames kind of vary with where the underscore is. So the best way to find me is just go to my TikTok and then go to the link tree. It's got everything in there, and I have a completely different username on Twitch, but it is in my link tree as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I have a link tree in my bio here and on TikTok. And shameless plug, Conspiracy Cantina has merch. You can buy it. I have to get out more products because Carter, you are getting a free shirt.
I was just gonna say that. I was waiting for the free
J.
shirt.
Kev's merch plug is the best one. I'm holding the mug. Okay.
Things have just been insane right now. Like I've had to look for a new job. We had a COVID lockdown in my house. Like, but
yeah, I may or may not have won a giveaway.
So yeah,
anything.
You are getting a free shirt. Don't buy anything. I have to order the shirt on Amazon. And Amber, if you're still in here, I have to get yours too. I have to order the shirt on Amazon.
Yes. But Hereth, do you want to kind of thank everyone who?
Yeah. I'll thank everybody in the chat. So we got Amber, Xanatos, Brooke, Aiden Talk Star Wars, Luke from the Podawans podcast. Rolling through people to see if there's anybody else. Let's
It's a great audience right there.
And
good folks.
yeah, and Char
Ace
J, Ace Bronx, and that's basically everybody. And thank you guys for watching. May the Force be with you.
Always for light and for life.